Hi everyone, my name is Declan McGlynn. Welcome to Friday Forum Live, Point Blank's weekly broadcast, bringing you exclusive tutorials, artist interviews and industry insight every Friday at 4 p.m. Today we're excited to be joined by Lol Hammond, music supervisor for distribution company Vertigo Films, the company responsible for cult classics like It's All Gone Pete Tong, Human Traffic, The Business and The Sweeney. Lol will be spilling the beans on how you can make money from syncing your music to film. So yeah, as you probably know, Point Blank has just launched a brand new Music for Media online course for all producers and musicians that are interested in writing and producing for video games, TV and film. It's a huge industry, one that a lot of producers might not yet have considered. So we've invited Lol Hammond to talk about an exciting new opportunity for Point Blank students. Lol joined the scene as a raver and has worked with some seriously major acts in the industry, such as Brian Eno, The Fall and Killing Joke. He's going to tell us a bit more about working with film and how you can get your music used in a Vertigo production. And remember, if you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comments below and we'll get to them later after we speak to Lol. For more information about our Music for Media course, head over to online.pointblanklondon.com/music-for-media. So yeah, thanks for joining us, Lol.
Oh, thank you for having us, Declan. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, I wanted to tell us a little bit more about your role at Vertigo.
Yeah, I'm the in-house music supervisor in effect. I've been there for 10 years since it started. Our first production was Football Factory, directed by Nick Love. And I've been there from the start, really. And I worked with the producer, main man at Vertigo, Alan Niblo. Before that, he did it with Fruit Salad Films, with Human Traffic and Southwest 9. So I've always worked closely with Alan. And so when Alan started Vertigo, I was lucky enough to be able to jump on board, basically. So it's been a great journey, fantastic.
And what does a music supervisor actually do?
I don't know. No. So basically, as what it sort of says on the tin, it's responsible for all music in the film. So it's finding the source tracks, the background music, which we will come on to later, and sourcing a composer. I mean, not every film I've worked on has had a composer. I can think of, for instance, Bronson. I didn't actually use a composer on that Nicholas Winding Refn production. I just I licensed a lot of big I think 9 big classical tracks from EMI's extensive classical library and threaded it all together with Nicholas. So there wasn't, in effect, no composer. There's been a few films, but predominantly most films have a composer. So it's my job to find these guys as well.
And you're just kind of like listening to how the themes and the music might fit the film, and you work with the director very closely. And just
no, it's a real collaborative. I mean, no one film's the same. Sometimes, you know, your input's sort of 50%, or it might be more, it might be 10%, but it's very much a collaborative. It's you two sitting in a room the same sort of size as this, in an editing facility with the editor literally going through music and poring over scenes and cues. It's really exciting, really creative process.
So what's your background in terms of before you got into that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, I was in an electronic band, a dance. There was a lot of electronic dance duos in the '90s called the Drum Club. Myself and Charlie Hall. So we used to make electronic music. We made 3 albums and toured with people like played with Orbital, Prodigy. And it's funny with all that sort of music. I see it all coming round. I was with Carl the other day, Carl Hyde, Underworld. Obviously, he's worked in film. Where the Orbital chaps, Paul and Phil, who scored Pusher, and John Hopkins, who did Monsters. So a lot of guys from that electronic music, I think it's quite a natural progression from us spilling over into the world of film composition.
Yeah,
so,
and you know, speaking of natural transitions, you've got a new venture, Vertigo Films Library. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure, Declan. So basically, it's not totally, but predominantly for background music. We found when we needed a bit of music coming, you know, people listening to the radio in a car, or they'd have a radio in the kitchen and it'd be in the background there. We were turning to sort of traditional sort of library companies, and not to put them down or anything, but we found that a little bit faceless, and we thought that'd be a wonderful opportunity to use new composers, writers, artists, and also we insist, you know, that they keep their own rights, and we pay a flat fee of £350, which is the same as a sort of standard, I think, library rate for about a minute of music. But equally, I think it's not suffice. Obviously, if you're using new writers, composers, so I think everybody wins, the new composers and Vertigo, and so I think it's a really exciting project. So we've got some fantastic music up there. There's been music added all the time, and we really intend to turn to that. We are also looking for sourcing trailers as well, especially for the films that we distribute, because Vertigo distribute films as well as make films, and often we need a music for a trailer. So we've found a couple of crackers already. So it's just, I'm basically going to switch all the sort of directors and producers I work onto that site, so they can source their music from it. I do think it's a really exciting model, and I think it's the way forward, basically.
Yeah, sure.
Way forward.
And even if you don't have composing experience or experience working with film or editing or anything like that, you can still submit your music.
Totally. I mean, obviously, experienced composers, they write to actual picture. But of course, if you get a really good track, you know, not all music used in film is written to the picture, so you can source really good tracks. I use tracks all the time, and lay them over the visuals. So no, we'll be getting really stuck in using that site as something we're really excited with. The whole model at Vertigo. It's a really exciting step forward.
Yeah, it sounds good, especially when it's kind of revenue streams are a little bit unclear right now for a lot of electronic artists. So it's nice to have something like that to fall back on as well. Totally,
Declan. I come from that background. I know it's a whole sort of, it is really tough. I think a lot of people are making predominantly their money from live work now, aren't they? And sponsorship, endorsements. I think it will change though. I do think it will change. It's not all doom and gloom, and I think it's never been easier to reach lots of people, thousands, millions of people, you know, for a social network. But at the moment, actually physically selling your music, I think it's become really hard. So I think I've noticed within the record companies and publishers as well, the whole sync thing is taken a lot more seriously. I remember when I used to phone up, and a lot of companies never actually even had a sync department.
Yeah.
I remember people saying to me, well, you know, sync, you know, they thought you wanted a kitchen shop or something. But so basically, I've seen that change, you know, where there was one guy stuck in the corner who no one talked to, and now there's sort of like 10, 15 people, and they actively, you know, they're on your case, and they're actively pushing that whole sync department. So I think they've recognised, all the big record companies and publishers, it's a really important revenue stream for both their artists and themselves. So that obviously makes it better for me as well, and all of us actually.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more respect from all sides. So yeah, no, it's really important. There's the whole ad world as well, isn't there? And there's a lot of money involved in that, and so it's just one of the other revenue streams.
Yeah.
So
and this is really useful, because the biggest problem is getting your music to rise above the kind of the fuzz, if you will, the noise that's out there.
They call it the noise, don't they? Yeah, no, totally. I totally understand that, because I suppose equally it's never been easier to make a music, produce a track. You know, all you need is really a laptop and a pair of bongos, isn't it? Sort of. So and off you go. And so I think basically there is that, like you talk about, that whole noise on social media. So to rise above it, but I do firmly believe the good stuff does rise above it, Declan. So. It's great, you know. It's just another thing.
Yeah. So how do you actually? What's the process of submitting a track if you did want to put something?
Yeah, I'll give you details later. There's literally a site, and you can literally where you just log on and put your track through, and we can get this tracks. It's going across all genres: and jazz, reggae, funk, classical. You know, we have got a bit of a selection. Obviously, we just can't have everything up there, otherwise the whole site would probably crash. But yeah, no, we are actively looking, and I get sent stuff all the time, and I do listen to everything, because, and I suppose it's a bit cliche, but you never know, do you? So you can find some amazing stuff. I have found some incredible stuff just sent across to me.
And even if it was from like an unsigned artist, just someone.
Oh, totally. To be honest with you, in film, and a lot of directors prefer people not so known, because if you think about it, if you're stuck in the middle of this hard-hitting drama, and there's some great pop track blasts in, or some sort of huge band, you're almost transferred into sort of MTV moment. It almost takes you out of that world. So a lot of directors do prefer stuff that isn't so known, to be honest with you, because they like keeping you in it, and it's not a distraction. Obviously, if a big track comes in, it can sort of overwhelm you and take over the whole scene. So you have to play it across the scene and the dialogue. So a lot of people do want instrumental and music that isn't so well known. You know, obviously there's moments where you do want that big pop anthemic track, or the over the end credits or whatever. or you know, you might want a big moment. I did Street Dance 1 and 2. Obviously, there were some fantastic big moments, digged up but dance scenes where you did call it. But yeah, no, there's definitely room for unknown artists. I'll say more. To be honest with you. So.
And do you think, you know, recently, I mean, Hollywood has kind of embraced electronic music coming from a classical background as soundtracks usually are. Recently you've had things like The Social Network and
Cliff
Tron
Martinez,
and Drive and things like that. So
no, totally. I do think so. Which I remember when they sort of kicking off Tron and the Daft Punk guys, and I think that's brilliant, really exciting. I suppose, yeah. Actually, I was watching Midnight Express, you know, Georgie Moroder score the other day, yeah, and that was the first one he did, and I just forgot how fantastic it is. But I'm surprised there wasn't more of that electronica sort of on the back of that. But no, you're right. I think Drive was quite a turning point as well. Yeah, Social Network. Yeah, all those films. So I think that's really exciting. And like I spoke of earlier, a lot of those guys like Orbital, John Hopkins, Underworld, they are crossing. Chemical Brothers, didn't they? They did the film as well.
Hannah,
Hannah, yeah. So I think it's a logical step for a lot of those electronic producers. And I think people often, you know, a lot of directors and cinema goers often want something a little bit different rather than the big sort of big classical score. So
and you mentioned John Hopkins earlier because we actually have a clip of Monster, is it?
Oh,
the
Monsters.
Trailer?
Yeah, directed by Gareth Edwards, who's gone on to direct the new Godzilla, actually. But John's someone I knew as a friend, and I admired his music, and he'd never done a film before. It's a typical example. You know, released a couple of fantastic albums and put him forward, and everybody went for it. So I suppose it was a bit of a risk, but that's you've got to do them sometimes, and it really paid off. I mean, he was put up for an Ivor Novello, three people in the whole world. He didn't actually win it, but he was recognised like that. Three composers throughout the world, and he's gone on to do. I mean, I think he did How I Live Now, that film recently. He's gone on to do big movies on the back of that. So John's a typical example of that. You know, electronica artist coming out and giving the opportunity and absolutely smashing it. So fantastic, really.
Yeah.
Really
so let's take a look at the trailer for Monsters.
Brilliant.
What is that?
Have been evacuated. Explosion. A new life form. He's mysterious. Quarantine.
They're taking us through the infected zone.
It's the only option we've got.
So yeah, I mean, awesome.
Oh,
I mean,
thank you, David.
I just wanted to ask, I mean, you've worked on a number of films. What's the process in terms of, because you spoke of maybe working with a director without a composer, working with a composer.
Yeah,
Do you get a brief? I mean, what's the process?
Yeah, I'm always starting a new one, but basically, the big thing is, I suppose, after they shot a film, they sort of build an assembly, which is usually about 2 to 3 hours of stuff they can use. I don't come in at that point usually because the big problem is I might literally start working on scenes that won't appear in the film, which is a waste of everybody's time, the directors, the producers, myself as well. So they're usually the first cut, and I literally will go to a first cut and sit in a room, like I said before, room like this with the director, myself and the editor. What we do, I've just done one actually last week for Monsters 2, actually, the follow-up. I do a spotting session. So yeah, we will go through a cut. I mark out, literally go, yeah, 6:21, we need some music there for a minute and a half, and check it. You know, the one I've just done is mainly score. There might be a track at the end, a source track. So yeah, just picking out a bit, things do move because the cut isn't set in stone, but just to give the composer, he will then get the reels and literally we'll start working on it. A lot of films are divided up into about 5 reels and he will start working on those cues, you know. Yeah. Literally like that, we literally do a spotting session, and pick out the cues and off we go.
Yeah, so if someone was, you know, working on their own, trying to make it as a producer, as a DJ, and working on stuff, I mean, and they never even considered, you know, making music just for film. Sure. What kind of advice would you give them? I mean, would you change the way they approach writing music, or just stick to it?
It's funny, man, because I can think of instances of working with guys who just had it on the back of #1 hits, and they, you know, big name. Obviously, everyone gets very excited, and then they try to write to picture basically, and it is a very different animal, different beast, and they've come unstuck, and it is a different skill. It's a totally different skill. I mean, what some guys do, they use like a music editor, so people, you might be making music, next to making these great tracks, maybe you and a music partner, you send stuff over to me and I will fit it to picture as a music editor. That's used a lot, especially in the States. So there's all that. But it is a very different skill. But then you get films where they are more just laying. So the trouble is, no 2 films are the same. So you might get. I can think of a film I worked on where the guys weren't writing much to picture. They were just basically delivering really cool tracks, and the film editor would in effect would edit their music. But it wasn't actually written to picture. But it did work. It did work. So you can do it like that. I do think as a composer it is important that you write to picture, even if I do think, and I would have thought a good way to start off is to do short films, you know. I think a lot of people, a lot of production companies source their directors from short films, and me included, and source their composers from short films. I suppose it used to be promos, but I don't know, not so many record companies are making promos now, so you have to find a director who was the hottest promo director in town, so someone would give him a chance. Or you could be a photographer. There's all sorts of ways, but obviously short film is a good way to put yourself in a window.
And the great thing is, as much as there is a lot of music out there, there's also a lot of video content happening right now as well.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people looking for someone to score their home, you know, just something to put on their blog, something to put on their YouTube channel.
No,
so
totally.
That's a good way to start, isn't it, to get some practice, work with someone like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way forward. I mean, it's just such an audio-visual world. I would have thought there's so many opportunities. I mean, you know, everyone's got a website. So there's a million billion ways of getting your stuff across. But with Vertigo, it's short films. A lot of their directors and composers are sourced from those guys and from the short film festivals. I can think of a lot of directors we found that way, and a lot of composers I've found for these short films. You know, I mean, 5 minutes. You know, you can make it. People are shooting films for short films, you know, on camera that cost, you know, £1,000. I mean, and editing on a laptop in their bedrooms. A bit like the whole DIY thing that happened in music with Acid House and punk rock before that. I think that's what's happened in film. I mean, people were literally editing their movie on a laptop, shooting it on their film, on their little camera. Next minute, it's playing on cinema. So I would have thought it's very exciting. It's exactly the same as happened in music. You've got an audio revolution, if you like. So it's sort of it mirrors music a lot, I think, film. I think they both sort of follow each other quite a lot.
So you would say avoid the cliches of doesn't always have to be a sad piano at a sad moment, and it doesn't always have to be a timpani when there's a big explosion.
Try and avoid all that. Yeah, you should always try it. Yeah, totally.
Do something original that's as original as the film itself.
Yeah, I mean, you see these great films like Clockwork Orange, how they use all that classical, I suppose. I mean, yeah, with very heavy violent scenes, and so the juxtaposition, they'd use beautiful classical music. I think you should always steer clear of the obvious, and I think that's a way to make your mark. That will get people talking about you, and obviously anyone can post something these days up online as well. So on the positive side, it's never been easier for people to check your work.
Exactly.
Whether it's music or visual, you know, it's incredible now that access you've got to, you know, people have got millions of followers on Twitter, haven't they? Millions, you know, and it's never been easy to have access and get yourself in a window, I think. But I think short films, I think it's just a matter of making friends with a short film director, really. I think a lot of those festivals are good. Been to the Edinburgh Film Festival a couple of times, and they're very conducive. They really push people together. They all these great sort of mornings in these hotel foyers, and you get all these. You can meet all these directors, producers. I found it really relaxed, and I think you can meet a lot of really creative people in that setting. But it's full of filmmakers, So,
True.
and the short film festivals, I think they're everywhere, aren't they? They're going on everywhere.
So yeah, maybe we could take a look at see if there's any questions from our YouTube guys.
Yeah, of course. Hopefully they won't be too complicated.
Yeah. Oh, it's a very elaborate name. The cat that walks alone.
The cat that walks alone.
Yeah. Has
Fantastic.
asked if your library is vast and material is constantly being uploaded. How do you choose what to listen to?
That's a good question. Yeah, it is vast. It covers numerous genres, and we do sort of at Vertigo. We've got sort of an A&R process. We have to have, otherwise, as I was explained before, there'd be 1 million tracks on there. It'd be impossible to sift through. But equally, if stuff has been, it's the site's only just gone live. If stuff's been there a while and no one's sort of using it, basically, we'll probably remove stuff. But yeah, we do try and police it a bit. Otherwise, it will be just so. But I always find as well when I'm working with directors, like when they ask me to put forward, say, a suggestion for a cue, I always give them, it's up to 5 pieces of music. I think if you give them 28 pieces, the heads are going to be fried, it's spinning like plates, and I think. Equally with the site, I think we need to keep it quite focused and have some sort of. But yeah, no, it's very good.
So if you were going to submit a track, don't just put every single thing you've ever done.
Well, yeah, I think if you submit 108 tracks,
Yeah.
I think people are going to be scratching their heads. Well, I suppose they'll pull out maybe the sort of 6, 7, 8, whatever they want to use. But we've got to have some sort of system in place. I think people will appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. So what scores are exciting you right now from a music supervisor?
Yeah, of course. I was thinking of the new things we've got coming up. I've done a big 80s musical, a very exciting project. I've never done a musical before, actually. I did the street dance films, but they're not strictly musical as such, people cast singing. So, called Walking on Sunshine. So I cleared some massive tracks from that, all the big 80s hits. I suppose it's a sort of in a similar vein to Mamma Mia. So it's a huge, big 80s romp set in the Mediterranean. Got some great big tracks, and they've been recreated by the very talented Anne Dudley, of course, did Full Monty and loads of just fantastic. Goes right back to Art of Noise, who's someone I've always respected and revered for years. Really a gifted, talented person. Anne Dudley, Pudsey, which is the little dog that won Britain's Got Talent, so obviously one for the kids. I've got 2 little boys myself who are going to love it. Especially the little one, that's great fun. And that's a really good composer, a guy called Simon Woodgate, fantastic composer. I've worked before, he did All Stars. And then completely different, it's what keeps it interesting, exciting, is Monsters 2, which is the same film. Also, we showed a clip earlier with John Hopkins doing the original.
Is he coming back for part 2?
No, we've got someone new on that, which is very exciting, which I'll tell you all about soon, which is someone brilliant. Equally, this is another great thing about my job. I get to work with these sort of composers and musicians that I've loved for years and have influenced me, so that's a real sort of perk of their job, I suppose.
Yeah.
Perk. So yeah, from Monsters 2 to Pudsey to Walking on Sunshine, you can see Vertigo and my job. It's what keeps it really interesting. They've kept it really diverse, and I think that's a really good thing about Vertigo and what we're doing. I think it's great.
So do you want to give people the URL to the library? Is it live now?
Yeah, I'll give you that later. I'll give you
well,
details.
we'll put it up on our Facebook and our socials so you can check it out and submit your
That's
stuff.
great.
So yeah, we're just about out of time, but
that's fantastic.
Yes, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you, Dick.
Really appreciate your time.
Cheers, dude.
And hopefully you guys got a lot out of that FFL as well. And make sure you visit online.pointblanklondon.com/music-for-media for more info on our Music for Media course, and stay locked to our Facebook, Twitter and YouTube channel for more free tutorials and live events, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.